In this video, we're not camping. Instead, we're going to show you how we cleaned and restained our deck. Having a double graduation party in a couple weeks. Rick's trying to get the pool ready. So we just stained this deck a couple days ago. We don't even have all the furniture back on it yet. We did film some of this deck work because I know a lot of you guys like the construction video. So Rick is by trade a contractor, and he used to build decks. Unfortunately, the decks he used to build were like $20,000-$40,000 decks that we can't afford. So we don't have the expensive wood or anything. He did this deck a couple years ago, and my son helped him. Problem is, it's the worst deck he's ever done, and I feel really bad for him. And it's not his fault, but the wood is very problematic. It really shrunk. So not a whole lot we can do with that now, but we did stain it and make the best of that, so it looks better stained. So he's going to talk about, he's got a whole process where him and his previous wife used to have a deck restoration and cleaning business. So a lot more work than I thought it was, okay? I helped a little bit, you'll see in the video, but... So Rick, how many decks do you think you've built?
Somewhere around a couple hundred.
So you worked for a company that did decks, and that company went out of business, and you're retired?
Right.
Okay. So a couple hundred decks, and they were some very nice, expensive decks.
Yeah, we did a lot of high-end custom decks using some of the most expensive plastic railing and decking material on the market.
Then you built this deck about 4 years ago, but we didn't use the high-end expensive plastics on the market. So how was that? Was that different building this deck?
Well, it was definitely different. I mean, it's obvious the worst choice for a deck in terms of appearance over time is to use pressure treated. I contracted with a local lumber company to purchase what they called premium pressure treated, which ran me about, I don't know, it was 20 or 30 cents a foot more. And I got the product, and it was definitely not the quality that I was expecting. And as a matter of fact, just while I was building this deck, a friend of mine asked me to help him with the deck because he didn't do that many of them. And he had purchased some premium pressure treated from another source, and it was head over heels better than this product. The stuff he got was absolutely not free, totally clear, and straight as an arrow. And I don't know how it fared dimensionally, whether it was that dry or not, but it installed nicely. So I was really disappointed with my material because I paid the same price basically that he did. And we just bought from two different lumber companies that were only about a half a mile apart.
So I know you were disappointed in this deck, but it's the product, not your workmanship.
Yeah, it's definitely the product that was at fault here.
Yeah.
I've never seen pressure treated shrink as much as this did, not just widthwise, but also longitudinally. There are places where the type of fasteners that I use, you can actually see they indicate that some of this decking shrank almost 3/4 of an inch in length and 4 feet.
So now you're not used to working with pressure treated, so I don't know if it was just because you were used to working with the high end stuff. But
well, all the decks that we ever built used pressure treated framing, but the decking company that I worked with had been in business for over 30 years, and he started out by pushing people to build decks with cedar and stay away from pressure treated. And we had decks that we maintained for people, decks that we had built that were 28 years old, cedar decks, and we were still out there cleaning them and staining them periodically for the clients. Decks at 28 years of age were still functional.
So, all right. So we had a little problems with the deck with some of the boards shrinking, and so we had to probably do a little bit more work to get it in shape before we stained it, or no?
Yeah, I did make some adjustments on some of the planks where they had shrunk so much and shifted wider, farther apart from one side to the other. So I reset some of the planks, straightened them out a little bit, and then we cleaned and brightened it and sanded it. I used a product that you can't even buy in New Jersey because they refuse to reformulate their product to meet New Jersey's VOC standards. And their product is based out of Texas, but I ordered it, the initial batch, through Home Depot, and then I needed more product. I went over to Pennsylvania and bought it. It's called Ready Seal. And if you look on the internet, a lot of people will tell you that they believe it's probably the best deck stain out there available.
So, can we put a link to that in the description?
Yeah,
I had mentioned previously that you and your previous wife had restored some of the decks too, and had a business doing that. I just thought we were going to stain the deck. I had no idea, number one, how expensive it would be, and number two, how much work it would be. Definitely a lot of work. I don't know if this one was more, but so can you walk us through the process of what we did to this deck to restore it? The first thing was cleaning it.
well, the first thing I did was reattach some of the deck planks and try and get, like, some of the ends had popped up, the boards had split a little bit at the ends and whatnot. So I tried to knock those down, even them out so that they weren't toe stumpers. And then we went to a cleaning process where I applied a cleaner and then rinsed it off using a pressure washer. Then I brightened the decking. Now that's where I went kind of out of sequence, because normally when we had our deck maintenance business, normally we would clean and strip the stain off of the deck, let it dry, then we'd go back, we would sand it next and then brighten it. Then after that it was ready for stain, where I actually brightened it ahead of the sanding and then went back and sanded.
But this wasn't stained before, so is that why you did it that way?
No, I did it that way because I just thought that I could get by with less sanding, perhaps. Pressure treated is a more dense wood than what, like, cedar is, so consequently it would require more sanding to make a presentable appearance.
Now, you had went out and rented a bigger sander that you weren't planning on, so you weren't too happy with how the wood was coming out.
No, I wasn't. I was primarily skeptical of the appearance in terms of the color difference in the wood. Some of it brightened up like brand new, and others looked gray, or even in some cases looked dirty, almost like it had soot on it. So I rented this floor sander to try to even that out somewhat, so there wasn't such a terrible contrast once it got stained.
Now, the stain, you mixed two colors, right?
Yeah, and when we had our deck maintenance business going, we often did that. The stains normally come in pretty much three tones. There's a yellow, a red, and a brown. And depending on what the tone of the wood is that you're starting with, kind of determined for us how we would approach blending the stains to try and achieve an overall color that we wanted. We didn't want to get too dark brown, but we didn't want to get too pale either. So we were always attempting to get a kind of an amber shade, which is sort of a mix between orange and brown. We found out that most of our clients felt that that was the most rich looking color. That's the way we would describe it, rich looking. It just seemed to have a certain warmth to it that using just a single stain without mixing it or blending it, you just couldn't achieve it.
Are you happy with the stain?
Yeah, I'm happy. I mean, the color is not exactly what I would have liked to have seen in my mind. But again, since I didn't have a lot of experience, we didn't do staining too much of pressure treated decks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been, I don't know, probably close to 15 years since we had the business where we were doing the maintenance part on them.
Right.
So my memory has lapsed a little bit, if you will.
Did you remember how hard of work it was?
Oh yeah, I knew that. That's why I waited like 3 years to bother doing this to it.
That's a wrap, everyone. You know what to do if you like this video.